Hi there, this is Elise Bennin, your marketing mentor. And this is the podcast for you if and only if you are ready to leave the feast or famine syndrome behind, and I mean for good. If you need a little hope right now, or if you are worried that your ideal clients aren't out there, this episode is for you. I had a most insightful and satisfying conversation with Rebekah Mays. She's a LinkedIn ghostwriter for climate tech executives. Rebekah just landed her dream project with an ideal client, and she was so excited about reaching that goal that she wanted to share what she's learned so you can do it too. Now, if that's not using generosity as a marketing tool, I don't know what is. Among many other things, Rebekah shared the one tiny shift in her LinkedIn headline that changed everything. She also gave lots of details about her own LinkedIn strategy, how and what she posts, and best of all, how comments get her ideal clients to reach out to her. It's not a fluke. This stuff works, as I like to say, when you do it right. And she has essentially internalized the simplest marketing plan. She's made it her own, and it is working gangbusters in the face of economic uncertainty and the rise of AI. You know, I just love talking to people like Rebekah who bring out the best in me, who are practicing what I preach, and who share what they're learning, because that's how the rest of us learn. I learned a lot today too. Rebekah is proof positive that when you focus, keep experimenting, and most important, don't give up, you will get there. You can definitely do this. So listen and learn, and then try it. All right, welcome back to the podcast, Rebekah.
Thank you so much, Elise. It's been a little while, but really, really good to reconnect with you.
Yeah, I'm so glad you reached out. And as always, please, let's begin by you introducing yourself.
Absolutely. So my name is Rebekah Mays. I'm from the US, but I actually live in the Netherlands, in The Hague. I ghostwrite LinkedIn content for climate tech executives and founders. Usually it's LinkedIn content, sometimes also email or some other content formats. Really, the goal is to build brand awareness, build thought leadership, and generate more qualified leads for their business.
Excellent. And how long have you been in business?
As of this June, which is when we're recording, 3 years full-time, I've been in the business.
Awesome. And your elevator pitch, as we call it, is very, very clear. But I think, and I know it's taken you a while to get there. So just give us
Almost
a little
3 years.
Yeah, give us a little background about like the evolution of how you've come to what you're doing. And then we're going to talk about landing dream projects with ideal clients.
Which is totally connected to the evolution. Good. So yeah, I mean, you know this very well because I've worked with you a lot on my positioning. Yeah, it's been quite an evolution. I think I've always been in content marketing, and writing has been my main skill set as a creative professional. I would say writing and creativity, project management, content marketing. But for a while, I just didn't really know what kind of content marketing to focus on. And that has been a big part of the evolution. So a couple of years back, for example, I was really focused on search engine optimization, so SEO. And I've done some like company content, so writing blogs. And I do still, enjoy some of that. But that I honestly was on a mission to try to figure out, number one, like who should I even be writing for? That's often the first thing that it makes sense to start with, because then you know better what you actually should offer them.
Exactly.
But and I think we'll talk about this more today, but like when I was able to figure out who I wanted to write for, that helped me figure out what to offer them. And I found that in the types of industries that I was working with, SEO, there's nothing wrong with it. Company content is still really valuable. And you can do it in a way that's high quality and all of this. But it often was not the most direct way to actually get them new business. And so I've actually been evolving towards like executive ghostwriting, as I call it, where I'm not doing all the research. Like, I'm not the one coming up with all of the ideas. It's the client, the executive client, might be a founder, might be a CEO, who has tons and tons of experience and stories and, all this knowledge. And I just come up with good interview questions to help them refine their thinking. And I found that the executive content, and I've just seen this several times working with clients, their content really resonates with people, especially when they share it on social, because that's where people are actually hanging out. And so I found it's much more effective. The content is automatically differentiated. And especially when you have someone like me who helps them refine their ideas, the content, and formatting it for the specific platform, it really resonates with people. So, that's been, the evolution in a nutshell. But there are a lot of twists and turns, and me just trying to figure it out along the way. So,
yeah. And one of the things you're talking about is the kind of content you write as part of your niche. But talk a little bit also about climate tech and the evolution toward climate tech as your niche also.
Yeah. So pretty early on, when I started the business and kind of went out on my own, I knew sustainability was going to be somehow a part of it, but I didn't really know. Like, I think for a while I was just saying I work for sustainable brands, and like that's the most broad thing you could say almost. I mean, it's better than nothing, but
it's broad for sure.
Pretty broad. That I tried that. I tried some other things. So at one point I said, I'm writing for, I'm laughing thinking about it, but I'm writing for purpose-driven B2B brands. Now, in my mind, I thought I knew what this meant, but B2B is, first of all, again, huge. Right. Purpose-driven, it's like everyone wants to think they're purpose-driven. I meant, they prioritize sustainability, they prioritize this and that. But when people would see that, they wouldn't really know if they fit into that category or not. I think it was about 2 years ago from now, that I experimented with just naming a specific industry. Mm-hmm. And when I did that on LinkedIn in my headline, and I started talking about those industries, so it's like clean tech, climate tech, I started talking about them in my content. For the first time, I was getting inbound people writing to me. Mm-hmm. I'm like, this is amazing. So it finally seemed like something was working. And so I just said, I don't care. Like, there could be other industries that are better fit for me. I'm just going to go with this. And since then, I've just been trying to build on that. And it's kind of like a snowball that's been rolling and getting bigger and bigger. So I've just found that there's a lot of ways to differentiate yourself and niche yourself down, but naming a specific industry just makes it very simple for me. Like, I know who I'm targeting, they know. And then since then, I've even narrowed it down a little bit to talk about climate tech executives, right? And you can still even go more niche than that, but because climate tech is quite a large umbrella term, actually. There's a lot of sub-industries that fit into that. So it's still huge. But I like kind of having a lot of options within that, and it's still clear enough that it's and specific enough that people kind of know roughly if they fit into it or not.
They recognize themselves. Yeah. One thing I find really interesting about choosing a niche, which is really one of the hardest choices for people to make, partially because of the resistance to it, right? Mm-hmm. And then once you get over the resistance, then you have to make your decision. And it seems like you didn't have a lot of resistance in the first place. You were just trying to figure out what it would be. Yeah. And I feel like the naming of an industry, makes a lot of sense because they then recognize themselves. And one of the elements of the resistance is, but I'm going to get bored, or it's going to be too narrow, or there's not going to be enough work, or, but wait, I want to do this too. And what you're describing actually is the depth that you have seen as you get more narrow. You can see how deep it goes. Even what you just said about, like, even within what I'm doing, there are lots of options. Just speak to that, like the difference between the reality and the fantasy, if you will, of niching.
When you say fantasy of niching,
so what people imagine, it's going to be too narrow. I'm going to be bored if I choose one thing, like climate tech. Oh no, I have to have 3. I have to have 5 different industries, right? And then you're saying, no, it's actually very deep.
Well, so this is kind of taking the question in a bit of a different direction, but one thing I've been thinking about is that we enjoy the work when we get better and better at it.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that when I have picked an industry, and that means that each project I do, the knowledge, especially as a writer, right, where I have to understand what I'm talking about or the content won't make any sense. So as a writer, I'm writing about some topics. The more I write about this industry, the more I understand it, the better I get at it, the more I enjoy it. And yeah, I've just found that, there's one, like I understand the jargon that I bring in, when I'm interviewing people, like I already know what they mean by certain terms.
Right.
Yeah, it's absolutely massive. I thought, oh, climate tech is an industry. I
Mm-hmm.
almost don't really think of it as an industry anymore. I think of it as this umbrella term for many industries. And yeah, it's massive. And I think that's probably the case for most, like, quote unquote industries.
Yeah.
We would name, is that how can you get bored when you're getting really good at something?
Right.
And actually, I personally, I enjoy the work more and more as I get better at it, which I think comes from the specialization.
I love that. Awesome. All right. And so we're talking today because you reached out to me about a story of how you landed what you're calling your 6-month dream project. So just tell me all about that. Tell me your
Yeah.
story.
Yeah. So maybe I'll tell the nutshell version and then we can get into it a little bit more.
Sure.
But essentially, so I've been in my business full time for 3 years as of this June. So what makes it fun is that just a few weeks ago, a client agreed to work with me for 6 months. What makes it really special is that, again, it's in this industry, which I find super interesting. So we're working on the environmental problems that we have. Like, that's really what the purpose of the content is about that we're working on, and that's what her business focuses on. My client's business. The work is LinkedIn ghostwriting. It's also some email ghostwriting, content marketing strategy in general. I love working for this client because she really respects me as a, like, marketing partner. She's very decisive, so she doesn't spend weeks like mulling over things. She just gives me her feedback quickly. She doesn't nitpick every word. She just trusts me. She's approving everything and reviewing everything before it goes out, but she trusts me as a marketing partner and someone who's got her back. And kind of to top it all off, she agreed to this 6-month project after we'd already been working together for a little while. She agreed to 6 months and she paid that 6 months up front at once. And that was because I had offered her a little discount.
Mm-hmm.
I said, hey, we've been working together on a recurring basis. If you're confident that you want to work together for 6 months on this, I can give you a discount if you want to pay this up front. And she did. And that was the most I've ever received at any one time in the business, which is really exciting and just, gives some nice stability. So that's kind of the nutshell version, but we could probably go into more on, like, how she reached out, what kind of work we're doing, and all of those things. So.
Yes, I do want to hear about that, but let's just focus on this number. I'm not going to ask you to reveal the number. That's your business.
Sure.
But what's interesting to me, or I guess what I wonder is, have you ever asked for payment in full upfront before?
No, which maybe it's not as big of a deal as it was in my head. But I will say, for the ghostwriting work that I've done, like I've had a couple of recurring clients, and I've had clients who will pay me at the beginning of the month, like before the work begins.
Mm-hmm.
I've done a lot of projects where we kind of split it 50-50, like 50% up front, 50% at the end. So I have, I've kind of been exercising some of those baby skills, you could say.
Yes.
But yeah, this was the first time where I had really asked for 6 months, and I won't give the exact amount, but it was over 15,000 euros, which again is, the most I'd received at any one point. So
yeah, that's awesome. And I just want to linger here for a moment because I know a lot of people struggle with this. And it's the idea that, number one, I'm worth whatever that number is, right? And when they pay up front, it means then you have to deliver. And so you have to have the confidence to know that you can deliver and then to actually deliver. And I think this is why often people don't ask for a deposit even at the beginning of a project, which is essential. And so I don't know if you have thoughts about that, but I just wanted to articulate it for those who are listening who might feel that way and know that your client doesn't feel that way. Number one, they feel whatever they feel. And sometimes what they feel is, let me, pay this up front because then I don't have to think about it anymore, right? Like it's not often even about the number. It's just about getting the paperwork done.
Yeah, definitely. And I did take it in step by step. So we started with like 2 months of work and she paid that in 2 pieces, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like we go from, you've never heard me before, just suddenly.
Exactly.
I'm charging you everything at once. We were doing like 2 payments and then we were doing recurring monthly. But by then we had built up a lot of trust.
Right.
And I knew I wanted to work with her. She was a great client, or she is a great client to work with. And so then it's like, hey, if you already know you want to do this work with me, and you already know you have this specific marketing budget, I can actually kind of incentivize it for you further, give you a small discount. And, and she was honestly trying to see, okay, how can I even stretch my marketing dollars further? So that was appealing to her. So there are a lot of reasons. It's not just about how can I mean, it's usually not like, how can I pay this person as late as possible? It's like they have a lot of factors that are going into their decision making.
Exactly. So let's talk about how you built this relationship is the way I'm going to frame it. Not how did you get this client, but how did you build this relationship? Because I just want to emphasize, especially in this age of AI, and maybe we can talk a little bit about how AI fits into your process and your world and your thinking. But more and more, it's always been a relationship business, but more and more, it is becoming more important to develop real relationships with real people and the trust that you referred to. So how did you build this relationship from the start?
So it's a bit funny because this is one of the faster relationships in terms of me going from she's never heard of me to actually working with me. That was actually quite quick compared to a lot of the other clients I've worked with. But it comes down to, I think, me specializing in like climate work and climate tech work. So that was already a big part of it. She found me through LinkedIn. So I had left a comment on a LinkedIn page that she follows.
Okay, wait. So it started with a comment you left on a LinkedIn company page, not a personal profile.
Yep.
And it wasn't her company, it was someone else's company.
Correct.
Wow. Okay, keep going.
Right. So I was doing a lot of commenting on different pages. That's kind of part of my content strategy on LinkedIn, and engagement strategy, if you will. She found that. I said in my headline on LinkedIn, I ghostwrite LinkedIn content for B2B climate tech startup executives. She's like, oh, that's me. She literally needed LinkedIn ghostwriting services. She was actually already paying someone for that. And she was thinking about maybe changing up that engagement.
All right. Let me stop you there because often people say, oh no, they've already got someone doing that. I will not reach out to that person, or that's not worth doing. Speak to that, please.
So she actually was working with a ghostwriting agency. So again, I would also think, oh, you've already got someone. But the content was good, actually. It was well written. And in some senses, it was, quote unquote, performing well. Like there was good engagement. But it wasn't industry specific. It was a bit general. And so it wasn't really building her as a thought leader. It wasn't really getting her great opportunities for her business. And so when we had a conversation, I was saying she saw that I specialized in her industry and at least had some knowledge. I didn't actually know a lot about her specific like sub niche as we were talking about, but I knew enough that I kind of knew where to get answers. So so I pitched her after we had an initial conversation. And first, by the way, she asked me, what's the price? Like in a nice way, but like, could you tell me more about your services? I said, oh, this is what I do. She said, oh, can you tell me about costs? Cause I don't know, like I have a budget. And if it's more than that, it might not be worth, like, I don't want to waste your time.
Yeah.
I said, I don't think it would be a waste of time. I think either way, like we can talk about your content strategy, and I think you'll come away with some good ideas, and then we can get into, pricing, if that makes sense.
So you dodged that question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
so
good.
I think that was crucial. If I just given my price, because I was more expensive than the ghostwriting agency,
right,
actually.
Of course.
So she said, okay, that sounds good. We scheduled a call, had a really good conversation. I created a proposal. I had a second call with her.
To review the proposal?
To review the proposal. I had already told her the rough price, and she's like, okay, this sounds interesting, actually.
Okay, wait, let me just ask you. Did you tell her the rough price in real time on that first call?
Correct.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Right. So that makes the proposal just a confirmation of the conversation as opposed to the first time she was seeing the numbers.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Which
Good.
I learned from your proposal Oreo strategy.
Exactly. You're doing the Oreo strategy perfectly.
Yeah. So we had the second call. She said, okay, it was so funny. She said, I've got some questions for you. I'm just going to do rapid fire because I kind of just want to make a decision right now. Mm-hmm. And, I'm busy. So I kind of just want to decide this now and not, have this waiting. I'm like, sounds good to me. So she asked me a few questions. I gave my best answers. And she said, okay, let's do it. This was in December. So this was about 6 months ago. We started working together in January. So it was like a couple weeks later. Yeah. And then in terms of deepening relationship after that, I think I just did a good job on the project. Mm-hmm. I showed that I was really like leaning into the project. And, there were some times when we were scrambling a little bit, like, okay, now we really want to get this out on a certain date. Like, let's do it. But they brought a great energy. She and her marketing manager. I was bringing my good energy. It was just really nice, like high pace, like fast paced. Like, let's just get this done. Let's make it good, but let's get it done. Let's get it out the door. Let's see what happens. And then we started working together on. We did 1 month of LinkedIn ghostwriting work as part of that project, and that went really well. And we got really good results like the first week of working together. And she's like, all right, I think you're a better fit than my other agency. So, and we just got along really well. So that's kind of how it all started. And from there, we were just working together on a recurring basis. And so each month I would say, hey, by the way, we're now working together recurring. If you want, I can keep billing you monthly. Or if you want to try this 6-month thing, like, here's how that would work. Just let me know. So
you proposed that.
I proposed it. Mm-hmm. And she said, let's keep doing monthly for now, but ask me again next month.
Nice.
I'm like, ooh, there's hope. So then a month later, I asked her again. Mm-hmm. And the whole time, I'm deepening the relationship with her just to kind of go with this theme. And so we were meeting in the beginning, we were meeting basically every week. We had a weekly meeting. We've scaled that back to like twice a month because now we know each other. I've got a lot of material I can work with, so I don't need to be meeting with her all the time. But especially the beginning, it was just more face-to-face time. I think another part of it was I was working with her mainly as the CEO and founder of her company, and she's the one I'm ghostwriting for. But we brought in her marketing manager a lot, who had a lot of good input, and so I just was trying to be as like helpful as possible to both of them, and to try to make their lives easier. So I think that was a big part of it as well.
Awesome.
And then eventually she said, hey, I want to do the 6-month project. I also have some thoughts on, maybe we can restructure the engagement a little bit. Because, I've got these other goals that we're not yet like working on. I said, okay, like, sure, I'm flexible. Because honestly, she was just such a good client. I'm like, I just want to keep working with you. If I need to be a little bit flexible about it, like, that's fine with me. So yeah, I, again, kind of went back to the drawing board. Like, I asked her more questions on what she was looking for. So we had a couple conversations about that. I created a proposal, more casual proposal, just kind of write up of the scope of work. Sent that over to them. I said, hey, this looks good. We're willing to make this commitment to 6 months, and we're excited about working together.
Awesome.
And part of that, and I know you'll like this part. So one other thing I really like about this client and why I kind of consider her an ideal client is that she's been very transparent with me. Like, I think I've asked good questions. So I said, like, at the beginning, one of our first calls when we did the recurring work together, I said, what would it take to keep working with you in 6 months? Mm-hmm. Like, what would you need to see happen? So she really liked that question. Mm-hmm. And then when we were kind of reworking the scope, I was asking her a couple questions, and she said, let me just be transparent with you. I'll just tell you my marketing budget so you kind of know the context. And I'm like, that's really helpful. It's helpful for me to know that. And thank you for sharing that with me, because then that also helps me be, see, okay, yeah, we should be a little bit creative of like how we can make this work. So, and we didn't lower the budget. Like we were still kind of, she was ultimately paying me pretty much the same as what she had been paying me. But we were able to be more creative with how we were approaching the content.
Awesome. I love that. Before we get to the lessons you've learned about dream projects, I do want to just step back and take a big picture at your marketing in general, because you are using the simplest marketing plan from what I can see, and you know it well. So just tell us a little bit about that context.
Yeah, I'm not even necessarily like intentionally. It's kind of, I have a plan. I've kind of made it my own in a way.
Yes,
but
that's exactly what you're supposed to do.
The lessons that you taught me, I haven't internalized them in some way. And so I don't even think of this as like, okay, now I'm doing my strategic networking. But I do have like my tasks and my things that I'm doing each week. So right now, I go off and on with this, but I do a lot of LinkedIn content. Sometimes I pull it back. Sometimes I do more. This week I've been posting every day on LinkedIn. And there have been periods where I post every day on LinkedIn. So the LinkedIn content marketing to my target audience of climate tech executives, that's a big part of it. The comments I've gotten multiple clients from my comments. So in some ways I'm like, I should just do this as much as I can because it's really working. So the comments is kind of a combination of the content marketing and the networking, because it's more relational.
Totally. That's what I always mean when I say connecting the dots between the tools, right? But I just want to specify, you're talking about comments on your posts now, or you commenting on other people's posts?
Not my posts, but it's more like I'll find someone that sometimes it's just organic. I'm like, I just see someone's post and I comment on it. Sometimes I will literally, there'll be someone I think I could help. I think I could, bring value to, and I would like to work with. So I'll comment on their posts. That's a great way to get noticed. When it's not.
What if they're not posting?
Sorry?
What if they're not posting?
Then you can do what I did, which was maybe they're not posting content, but maybe there's an industry publication that they follow, or, there's some association or some company that they're partnering with, and they might follow that content. You can also just comment on the company's posts, because that's also a great way to get noticed. And I've literally gotten clients from, like, I had one client, or they weren't a client at the time, but they just posted like, oh, we just closed 6 million, whatever, in fundraising. And the company page was posting about that. And I said, congrats, did like the strong arm emoji. And they were like, hey, what do you do? Like, we'd like to talk to you. I'm like, wow, okay, that was the easiest client I've ever landed. So, awesome. Yeah. So the comments are part of the ecosystem of content.
Let me just ask you one other question about your LinkedIn post. Can you just characterize, because a lot of people's like, I don't know what to post. I can't think of anything to say. Like, where does your content come from, whether it's about LinkedIn marketing or anything else?
A lot of practice. Honestly, this is the real answer. It's a lot of practice. It's a lot of figuring out what works, what people are interested in, what everybody else is doing. So if I used to just write like, here are some SEO tips for optimizing your, website. Like, a lot of people do that kind of thing, and it's hard to really stand out unless you are like a real authority in that space. I have found that a couple things have worked really well for me, especially now. So one thing is just writing about news in my industry. Like, one of my literally my most successful post was, there was kind of a scandal in my industry, and there was a company that was getting a lot of negative press. Some scientist wrote a piece defending them. I just kind of curated this and gave my own take on it, and that piece went crazy. and got a lot of visibility in that industry, which was quite interesting. But I also will sometimes do like content marketing advice, but it's really specifically tailored to my industry, which helps it kind of stand out from other content. So anyways, I could go, there's a lot more about
that's enough. That's all right.
strategy, but listening to the conversations I'm having with clients and with prospects and trying to answer those questions as well.
Listening to the market. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So I think I interrupted you though in your SMP related context.
So, so the content is a big part of it. The industry specific content and engagement, I'll say. I also do a lot of outreach on LinkedIn, and that has probably worked better for me than email outreach because I'm so active on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is my offering as well. I think it, basically connecting with people who, again, either like I want to be connected to, I think I could help them, I'll connect with them and just kind of start up a conversation in the messenger. But once they've accepted the connection request.
And one question I'm getting a lot lately, and people are answering very differently, is when you invite someone to connect on LinkedIn, do you add a personalized note or not?
Not usually.
Interesting.
Yeah. You only get so many if you don't have the premium. So
true.
I think they've lowered the limit recently.
Yeah, it's like 5 or 10 a month, it's like, or something crazy.
It's not going to do much. So,
but you do have premium, I assume.
Just like as of the other day, I've kind of gone off and on. Usually, I don't really need premium, but I wanted to see who was viewing my profile. That's what I wanted. I'm like, I need more intel on this. This is good stuff. So.
And one other question there. So you don't necessarily add a note to connect, but if and when they accept, you start a conversation. And I'm always asked, well, what should I say there? How do I start? What's the right thing to say to start that conversation? What would you advise?
There's no wrong answer. I think there's a lot of different ways to start it. Some people don't like some creative professionals don't really want to immediately pitch something. But honestly, lately I've been sending some specific acknowledgement of something they're doing in their company. Like, hey, congrats on this specific thing. Or like, I enjoyed your piece that you just published over here. And then I'll just say, like, I have an idea for you that I think would help you with blah, 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 because I think it looks like you're prioritizing that. Do you mind if I send you some info about that? And then I see what they say.
Yeah. And I would think they would say yes.
Yeah. I mean, not all the time. But people are like, if they think I could maybe help them, it's like sort of like, what do I have to lose?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Exactly. All right. I think I interrupted you, but keep going. If there's any more. So the engaging and content on LinkedIn and the outreach. So no in-person networking. I feel like you've gone to some events.
In the past, I did. It's tricky. I think because I got a lot out of those events and I learned a lot, but I didn't necessarily get clients from those events. So I have gotten clients from like virtual events in the past, which is ironic. But so I know obviously they can be really, really valuable, but for whatever reason, it wasn't working for me at the time. The other thing I did more in the beginning as I was trying to get the business off the ground was a lot of like warm outreach to people in my, like people I already knew. That like, if I hadn't done that, I would not have a business today. I don't do as much of that now. But so that was basically emails to people and, trying to start up a conversation. Now I do more people who are my target audience, right? Because I have kind of a specific idea of what I'm trying to do rather than like friends and family.
Right. And not warm necessarily. I mean, you warm it up with the background research that you do and personalizing it. But just say a little bit more then about what you just said. I wouldn't have a business today if I didn't do that warm outreach. Why not?
Well, I'll say one of my clients early on was a high school friend who has a marketing agency. And I literally was in a webinar with Michael Katz, who talks a lot about, marketing and all these things. And he was saying, like, right now, send an email to someone and do it in this specific way. Just like say, hey, how's it going? And reach out to them, start up a conversation. I was literally in this webinar with Michael Katz. I sent an email to this high school friend. And as I was just thinking of this guy that I used to know, I realized, wait a minute, he has a marketing agency. That's cool. I sent him the email. While I was still in the webinar, I heard back from my friend.
Oh my God.
And he said, hey, and I had it in my email signature, like, oh, my business, this is what I do. He said, hey, I didn't know you did that. Like, we should have a catch up about it. That client, that friend of mine, helped me get going in the beginning because he was quite a steady client for a couple of years in the beginning.
I remember that. Yeah.
Anyways, I that was just one example. There were many other examples similar.
Well, what's important there in what you're saying, and number one, Michael Katz has been a guest on this podcast, and I actually have another episode scheduled to record with him very soon. So I'm looking forward to that. But what you're talking about basically is what sometimes people think about as cheating, that working for people you know, whether it's family or friends or people you used to know, is not, doesn't count, basically. Yeah. Or they assume that there's no one in their circle who would need or know someone who needs the services that they're offering, so they don't do that. Or what you said, which is, I kind of forgot that he owned an agency, right? Like, so if you hadn't done that and you hadn't remembered that, then none of this would have happened. I just love that kind of thing.
Yeah. And just one other example that changed the whole course of my business is that I was having a conversation with my brother-in-law at Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, hey, I'm now like working with climate tech companies. And he said, you should contact Rachel, who's like a friend of our family. That's not a real name, but you should contact Rachel. She's like a CEO of a climate tech company. Like she started this whole company. You should reach out to her. I did. Finally, I got in touch with her. It took a little while. 3 months later, we were working together. Mm-hmm. So it was like from the family. And that was not just a legit client, which I think any client is legit if they're paying you, but that was a really transformative moment in my whole business.
Sounds like it.
Getting specialized.
Awesome. All right. Let's talk about dream projects and what you've learned.
Yep.
Talk to us. 3 lessons you've learned about dream projects.
3 lessons I've learned about dream projects. This is really just what I was thinking about as I was reflecting on this whole experience working with this great client. I think the first thing I've learned is just that dream clients, ideal clients, if you will, like they do exist. I think when you're first starting out, especially, or you haven't really worked a lot on positioning or pricing, it can feel a bit like, I thought that freelancing was going to be easy. And I don't know, it seems like every client like maybe doesn't have the budget that I would like them to have, or, they're busy and the project is stressful. Like it can be tricky to find the right fit for a project. But
you have to look for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's not just that they come out of nowhere. And I'll get to this later, but there's a lot of intentionality that goes into it. But I think the first thing is just that there are great people who are organized. They have budget. There's interesting projects out, like not projects, but they're interesting industries and niches and things that you can do for those companies that are just cool. So they are out there, and it takes a lot of intentionality to get there, but there's hope. That's
good.
The first thing
we need hope, definitely, right now, especially.
The second lesson I've learned is that dream projects are born from specificity. Mm-hmm. So we talked about me naming my industry, and that was a really important moment, and me being able to, number one, figure out who I was trying to target, but number 2, figure out what kind of projects are most interesting to me, what clients and industries are most interesting to me. As soon as I named my industry, it was more specific, and that helped me know what I was looking for. It helped people know that it would, it could be interesting to work together. And the more, I think, specific I got myself on what I was looking for, what was important to me in a project. So I did this where I kind of made a list of, like the money is important. Like I know what I need to charge the client, and I know kind of what I need to build my business from a financial perspective. That was really important. But I also know what types of projects I want to offer. I'm not just offering everything. I'm offering like a few specific things. And then I wrote down like client values. And I realized by doing this exercise, and this came from experience also of kind of doing some projects and knowing what went well, what didn't. One of those things was I value clients who can make decisions quickly, decisive people, and people who aren't nitpicking every little word. And, we're doing a million edits, but like, we'll do 1 or 2 rounds of edits and it's great. Let's get this out the door because they know that that's the
They're
important.
not perfectionists.
Yes. So those were a couple of specific things. It will be different for everybody, right? And depending on your business. But the more specific I got, the more I could attract, or the more I knew what I was looking for, and the more I could attract those dream projects. And then I think it ties nicely to the last point, which is that dream projects, they can sometimes feel like they're out of the blue when they finally happen, and when those ideal clients finally connect with you and work with you. But they're often a result of very intentional effort. And so I think for me, the perfect example, I mean, in one hand, this was my client, the dream client that I've been talking about. She reached out to me in December. And at the time, it felt a little bit out of the blue because I'm like, oh, I got someone who's literally asking for the services that I offer. But it was not, it was not random. It was me leaving comments, me building my, experience in this niche the whole time. And then this friend of the family that I was mentioning, Rachel, like when we started working together, I had, been networking with my brother-in-law. He had told me about her. It was a few months later, and I suddenly got an out of the blue, quote unquote, Calendly invite, link to request to meet. And the topic that she wrote that she wanted to talk about was thought leadership for CEO. And I was like, oh my goodness, this looks so cool. Like, I can't wait to talk to her about this. And I was so excited to talk to her. It felt out of the blue at the time because I had not really been following up with her that much. But it was because I had planted this seed a few months earlier of like telling her what I do and, trying to get in touch with her. So it's just that there's a lag sometimes, or quite often, between the things that we do and when we finally see the results of those actions. And so it's just really encouragement, encouragement to like keep sticking with it. And this is a lesson I've had to try to teach myself again and again. I'm sure haven't learned it fully. Yeah. The more we know what we're trying to get and the more we go after it, the more those things will happen. And when they finally happen, it feels like, wow, the stars are aligning, but it's because we did the work.
Exactly. And also what you're describing is what another podcast guest called tenacity. And so I'm curious if you think of yourself as tenacious, Rebekah.
I haven't thought of that specific word. I think of the word resilience and being resilient. That's kind of the word I identify with, where it's just, there are going to be ups and there are going to be downs, but just
riding the waves.
Riding the waves. And I've just realized a lot of this is just about sticking with it, but like outlasting whatever temporary struggle there is and working on that really intentionally until you can kind of get to the next challenge, the next thing that you're going to have to figure out.
And I think inherent in what you're describing also is a certain faith and trust. But I'm curious, in what exactly would you say?
I think ultimately it's trust in myself that I'm going to be able to figure it out, and that I've put in enough work to continue to get better and better results, but that also trust that if I do something enough times and it doesn't work, I will figure that out. I will figure out how to find the right way to do it so that I do get the results that I want. Yeah, I think ultimately it's trust in myself.
Beautiful. You're making me cry. Okay, two more questions. We can make them short questions because we are kind of running out of time. And one is a really big question, so good luck. But I do want to know how you're thinking about AI and how it is or is not playing a role in what you're doing, right? Because a lot of writers are afraid.
I'm not so afraid at this point. I do think we have to stay on our toes a little bit and be aware of what's happening. But honestly, AI is part of the reason I've repositioned myself to a ghostwriter, because when, ChatGPT first came on the scene, I was still in SEO land. And I've just learned that whether you do SEO content or some other kind of content or whatever your service is, like, you have to figure out how to differentiate your work, first of all, from what the AI can do, or find some other way to approach it. But this has been my way to approach it, that it's like, okay, let's find the differentiated content we might use. And I do use AI to help me with that, lots of different parts of the process. But that's been a big part of my evolution, is like, let's try to create differentiated content that actually gets results. And that's the thing that I'm focused on.
For your clients.
For my clients, rather than like the exact tool is sort of irrelevant in a way. It's like, what's the ultimate output? That's what I'm trying to focus on.
Beautiful. All right. Last question. If my listeners are interested, and I would assume they are, in landing their dream projects with ideal clients, what's a baby step they can take in that direction? What would you recommend?
I'll assume that your listeners have worked with some clients already. I would say the first baby step is looking back on the projects that you've had, whether they're, well paid or not well paid or free or, whatever, and really observing some patterns, making a list of like, which projects and which clients have you really liked, and what specifically did you like about them? If there was a great client that you like working with, what specifically do you like working, and the opposite as well. Like, what do you hate? What did you hate about this project? What did you not like about working with the client? And it's not just about the money. It's about, how responsive they are, and, whatever's important to you. And so I think making a list and like writing down those thoughts and categorizing them is a great first step to be able to look for the types of things that you actually like.
Love it. And we actually do have a worksheet for that in the Pick a Niche kit. So I'll link to the Pick a Niche kit in the companion blog post for this. But Rebekah, thank you so much. This has been so helpful, I know, for me, as well as for the people who are listening. And please tell the listeners where they can find you and more information about you and what you're doing online. And actually, maybe in that answer, you could also just to say a little bit about the role your website plays in this whole process, since your focus is on LinkedIn.
Right now, the website plays no role. No, it's really LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is where people can find me. That's where the most up-to-date information is. I need to spend a little time this weekend, I think, updating my website. But LinkedIn is really where I post a lot of information about what I do, how I help clients, my latest thoughts on everything. So that's probably the best place people can find me.
Okay. And so spell your name so people can find you on LinkedIn.
Yes. So my name is Rebekah Mays. Rebekah is with a K. So it's Rebekah. Mays is Mays.
Beautiful. You're awesome, Rebekah. I am thrilled to watch and witness your growth. It's just really beautiful. So thank you for sharing it.
Well, it's been wonderful working with you. And, I'm sure you can see that your seeds that you planted, from the beginning have been a big part of this whole journey.
Awesome. Thank you. We will talk again, no doubt. I just love Rebekah's baby step because anyone can do it. Take a look at the clients and projects you have done in the last year or so and see if you can identify any patterns. As I mentioned, we do have a worksheet in the Pick a Niche kit for that and many others to help with that first step of choosing where to focus and who you want to help. And that is one of Rebekah's keys to success. You can find that in the shop at marketing-mentor.com. And if you want my help figuring all this out, I hope you will take advantage of my free mentoring session. You can find that and lots more resources, including my simplest marketing plan, at marketing-mentor.com. So enjoy, and I'll see you next time.